Imagine this. You're standing in the middle of a forest 50,000 years ago. Dark clouds begin gathering overhead. A cold wind rushes through the trees. Then the rain starts. Not for an hour, not for one night, but for an entire week. No house, no umbrella, no waterproof jacket, no weather forecast telling you when it would end. Just endless rain. And one terrifying question. Would you survive? Most people imagine ancient humans simply running into a cave and waiting for the storm to pass. Problem solved. Except that's mostly Hollywood. Here's the surprising truth. Most ancient humans didn't actually live in caves. Archaeologists have discovered that many early humans preferred open camps, river valleys, forests, and temporary shelters built close to valuable food sources. Caves were useful, but they were rare, and many were already occupied, sometimes by bears, sometimes by lions, sometimes by hyenas that definitely weren't interested in sharing. If a storm suddenly arrived, finding shelter wasn't as simple as running into the nearest cave. Sometimes there wasn't one. As the rain continued, the temperature dropped. Animal skin clothing became completely soaked. The ground beneath every step turned into thick mud. Food became wet, and any fire left exposed was quickly extinguished. Without fire, everything changed. There were no warm meals, no dry clothes, no protection from freezing nights, and no comforting light to keep dangerous predators away. For ancient humans, rain wasn't just annoying. It could be deadly. Babies lost body heat quickly. Elderly people struggled against the cold. Even a minor injury could become life-threatening if someone remained wet for too long. 1 week of relentless rain could mean the difference between surviving and disappearing forever. But here's what made humans different from nearly every other species. We didn't survive because we were the strongest or the fastest. We survived because we learned to adapt. Instead of fighting nature, our ancestors carefully studied it. They watched the movement of clouds, learned how rivers behaved after heavy rainfall, and understood which landscapes offered protection when storms arrived. If caves weren't available, they looked for something just as valuable: the land itself. Massive rock overhangs became natural roofs, blocking much of the rain while still allowing smoke from fires to escape. Archaeologists have found layers of ash, broken stone tools, and animal bones beneath these rocky shelters, showing that early humans returned to the same safe places again and again. Nature had already built the roof. Humans simply learned how to use it. But not every landscape offered rocks or caves, so our ancestors became builders long before cities ever existed. They bent young tree branches into curved frames, covered them with bark, leaves, grass, and animal hides, creating simple shelters that kept much of the rain outside. They weren't beautiful, but beauty wasn't the goal. Survival was. During the Ice Age, some groups living across Europe went even further. Using mammoth bones and enormous curved tusks as the framework, they stretched thick hides over the structure to create surprisingly warm shelters capable of protecting entire families from freezing winds and heavy storms. Imagine surviving inside the skeleton of one of the largest animals ever to walk the earth. It sounds unbelievable, but archaeologists have uncovered these remarkable structures, proving just how resourceful our ancestors really were. Choosing the wrong place to build, however, could be fatal. Too close to a river, and rising water could wash the shelter away overnight. Too deep inside the forest, and weakened trees could collapse during the storm. Too high on a hill, and freezing winds would steal precious body heat. Ancient humans didn't have weather forecasts or satellite maps. They had experience, observation, and generations of knowledge passed from one family to the next. Every mistake taught a lesson, although sometimes that lesson came at an unimaginable cost. But even after finding shelter, another challenge remained. Everything was wet. The wood, the grass, the animal hides, even the air itself. Without one essential thing, none of it mattered. Fire. Fire wasn't just a luxury for ancient humans. It was the difference between life and death. Without it, cold rain slowly drained body heat. Wet clothes never dried. Raw meat became dangerous to eat. And darkness brought a new kind of fear. Because humans weren't the only creatures trying to survive the storm. Wolves, hyenas, cave lions, and bears were also searching for shelter, and the warm glow of a fire often became the only thing standing between a family and a hungry predator. That's why early humans treated fire like treasure. Instead of letting it burn out and starting over every morning, they did everything they could to keep it alive. Someone in the group was almost always responsible for watching the flames, adding wood before the fire became too weak. You could think of it as the world's very first night shift. Before storms arrived, people gathered as much dry wood as possible and stored it beneath rock overhangs, inside shelters, or wrapped beneath animal hides to protect it from moisture. Once the rain soaked the forest, finding dry fuel became incredibly difficult, so planning ahead often meant the difference between warmth and freezing through the night. Even when the flames began to fade, they protected the glowing embers hidden beneath the ash. Embers stay hot much longer than open flames, and some groups carefully carried them inside pieces of bark or hollowed-out containers packed with insulating ash while traveling from one place to another. Rather than creating a new fire from scratch every day, they simply fed those glowing embers fresh fuel whenever they stopped. Imagine carrying tomorrow's fire in your hands. Fire also did far more than provide warmth. Its smoke helped drive away mosquitoes and biting insects. Its light discouraged many predators from coming too close. It dried soaked animal hides, preserved food, and made cooking possible. Cooking didn't just improve the taste of food. It made many plants easier to digest, killed harmful bacteria in meat, and allowed the human body to absorb more energy using less effort. Around those fires, stories were shared. Children learned survival skills, and knowledge passed from one generation to the next. In many ways, fire wasn't just keeping people alive. It was helping create human culture itself. But even with shelter and fire, another challenge was growing worse every single day. Hunger. Imagine waking up on the 5th day of nonstop rain. The sky is still gray. The ground is completely soaked. Your stomach hasn't felt full in days. Unlike today, there are no grocery stores, no refrigerators, and certainly no food delivery. If you wanted to eat, you had to leave the safety of your shelter and face the storm. Hunting during heavy rain was far more difficult than most people realize. Animal tracks quickly disappeared beneath mud. Rain washed away scents that skilled hunters normally followed. Wet spear shafts became slippery, and bowstrings lost tension as they absorbed moisture. Even hearing became unreliable because the endless sound of falling rain covered the footsteps of both prey and predators. Ironically, humans weren't the only ones struggling to find food. Every hungry wolf, cave lion, and hyena in the forest was facing the exact same problem, making dangerous encounters even more likely. So instead of chasing large animals through soaked forests, many groups adapted. They looked for food that actually became easier to find after rainfall. Fresh mushrooms appeared across the forest floor. Edible roots softened in the wet earth. Snails emerged from hiding. Fish became trapped in shallow pools as rivers changed course. Along rivers and coastlines, shellfish could often be collected with relatively little effort. Insects, hiding beneath damp logs, became another valuable source of protein. It might not sound like an exciting dinner today, but to an ancient human, survival mattered far more than taste. A handful of insects or a basket of shellfish could mean another day of life. Rain forced people to think differently, to become flexible, and to use every available resource instead of relying on a single hunting strategy. And perhaps the greatest lesson the storm taught them wasn't about fire or food at all. It was about each other. Survival wasn't the responsibility of one strong hunter. It depended on everyone working together. Some gathered firewood whenever the rain slowed. Others repaired damaged shelters or searched for edible plants. Experienced hunters protected the group, while elders watched children and shared generations of survival knowledge. Cooperation became humanity's greatest advantage. We didn't conquer nature because we were stronger than every other animal. We survived because we learned that many hands working together could overcome challenges no individual ever could.